All right, so the presentation is being recorded as of this present moment. Please ask questions in the chat box. You can ask them in Spanish or English. We have Spanish interpretation today, simultaneous, from Miss Maria Baker and Mr. Darren Reed. They do an awesome job. And so ask your questions in the chat box, and then we'll have a time at the end for questions. Let me see, we're going to go ahead and move on. All right, there's a questionnaire that is in the chat box that you were also sent earlier, I believe. So what you're going to, if you have not had a chance to fill it out, please take the time now to fill it out while we're getting ready to get started. It just takes a few minutes. There'll be a pre-test to see how much knowledge you have on this topic, and then there'll be a post-test at the end where you can see how much you've learned. And then at the end, we will have and that survey is in English and in Spanish. And at the end, we will have a Survey Monkey survey to see how satisfied you were with the presentation, and that goes straight to the Alabama Council on Developmental Disabilities, who very graciously has funded this research and this outreach opportunity for Spanish-speaking families impacted by intellectual and developmental disability. And we have found it to be so good to have it twice a week when we do it. We do the presentation once a month, but we do it twice each month, once during the day and once mostly for professionals and parents, and on a Friday evening at 5 o'clock for family members. And we offer that one both in English and in Korean interpretation. So, and again, we are very thankful to have the Alabama Council on Developmental Disabilities funding this outreach opportunity. Okay, introductions. Dr. Christine Drew is a assistant professor, and she is one of the primary investigators on this grant. She is teaching this morning. So we will be limping along, making sure we cover everything that she usually covers, but she's really great, and she has been our research arm, and we are really happy to have her on this grant. She's also a board certified behavior analyst. And so she's a great partner for the three of us. And then I am the director of the Regional Autism Network. I'm an associate research professor, and I'm one of the PIs on the grant. And we're very excited to have this opportunity. And the really most important person on this grant is Miss Maria Gutierrez, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. So my name is Maria Gutierrez. I am the family navigator for the Regional Autism Network. We cover 20 counties, and we are so happy to see some new faces that we haven't seen for a while. So thank you for taking time from your busy morning to be here. And also, I am the parent of a young man on the autism spectrum. So I hope that you guys find this presentation relevant and informative for you to apply with your loved one at home. Thank you.
And our next person we want to introduce is Dr. Hinton. Did you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll get started?
Sure. I'm Dr. Vanessa Hinton. I do research and instruction and supports for children in school and for families. And my primary research line is mathematics, but I do dabble in a little bit of reading research. And I love instruction, and I love working with schools, and I love working with families. And I'm very grateful that y'all are here today. All right, so what whenever I talk about academics, one of the foundational pieces that I like to talk about when it comes to academics is the idea of making meaning. We make meaning all the time. The two main ways that we make things meaningful to us, or we build understanding, is we use our five senses. And so sight, touch, smell, hear, and taste. So we explore the world using our five senses, And then what we do is we tie our experiences with those 5 senses to what we already know. So we use what we know and our 5 senses to figure out what we don't know. Okay. And that's how we make meaning of our surroundings. And this includes academics. Uh-oh, there a pause? There we go. So what happens in academics is we have to make meaning, and then we have to apply that meaning to very abstract concepts, or we have to apply it in abstract ways. Okay, so this is an example. There's many examples, but this is one example. Let's say a student or a child is either hearing a story or is reading a story, okay? And usually a story is about a character or events. But what the child has to do is they have to identify the character using and understanding the term, this is a character, okay? And then they have to identify what that character might be feeling, doing, or expressing, okay? And so a student has to base or tie their own experiences to what's happening in that story, understand character, understand events, and then answer that question. So for example, let's say you have a little girl, Susan, who fell off of a bike in the story. So you have to understand that Susan is the character. She was riding the bike and then she fell off the bike. But then the question might be, now that she fell off the bike, how does Susan feel? And in the book, it may not necessarily tell you that she's sad. But what the student or what the child has to do is relate their lived experiences. You know, I fell off a bike once. When I fell off a bike, it hurt. I skinned my knee. And so that really made me sad. And so then the student and the child has to figure out Susan, the character in the story, when she fell off her bike, was sad. So that's an example of having to make meaning and apply that meaning, but it's in a more abstract way than just our lived experiences. Okay, so when it comes to applying learning, what happens in school is we have to sort information, we have to find and apply patterns, and then we also have to apply rules. Okay, here's another example. And Dr. Hill, this is that link that I emailed. So after I kind of go through that example, we'll pull up that link. So for example, you have these words like rake and cake. Okay, in school, we learn about short vowels and long vowels. And a short vowel is in between 2 consonants. But sometimes a vowel could be in between 2 consonants and you add a silent E to the end of the word, and then that vowel becomes long. So what happens is when students in school have to explore the words cake and rake, they have to see how the words are alike and different. So for example, they have the same vowel sound and ending sound, but they have different beginning sounds. They have to notice that long vowel pattern that I just described, and then they have to apply that rule that it would make it say its name as they decode that word. And then so to see a couple of other examples, and then we'll pull up a link and we'll just touch on a couple of more examples that have that example of the long vowel rule. Yeah. That is not this right. That is the wrong, but okay, let's use that. Okay, so for example, this is a different example, but it's still a good example. I apologize, Dr. Hill. That was a completely different link. All right, so for example, now this is upper grade. So you have prefixes that you have to apply to words, and the prefixes have different meanings and they change the meaning of the word. For example, this is D, the prefix D and the prefix dis, okay? And then Dr. Hill, will you click that arrow so we can actually see the word and see how those prefixes are applied? Okay, so what they have to do, you have to know credential, but you have to apply either D or dis to credential. So like if you de-credential, you have to know the meaning of credential and apply the rule of what the prefix D does to the word. So that right there is an example. Now that's more, that's a 5th grade example actually. Do one more, like click the arrow one more time. And then you see that arrow down there at the bottom? No, go back up. See that arrow, right? It's black. You see 1 out of 10. That arrow, click that. Okay, so credible. And then click it. So you see credible, to be believed. And then what we got to do, if you're apply D or dis, I think, doesn't it, it means not. So if you've been discredited, you're no longer to be believed or trusted. But what they're doing is they're applying those prefixes to those words. So they're having to know the rule and then apply it to the meaning of those words. So that's an example of having to do that in school. Okay, and then we can get back to the PowerPoint. There we go. So that was the example with the long vowel. I didn't realize it was put in there. So that's the example. On the left, you see the short vowel, and then on the right, you see the rule applied. But then also what a student has to do is see how are the words alike and different. So for example, you have hop, where that O is ah, and the beginning sound and the ending sound are the exact same. But then once you have the rule of the silent E, that ending sound and the beginning sound are still the same, but the middle sound or the vowel is different. So then it becomes hope. And the child has to apply all of that together at once. So that's one of the things that makes academics difficult for students. Okay, and yeah, we can go on to the next. Okay, so now knowing that and understanding that, how can I help at home? So think of the brain like a muscle. The more we engage in cognitive exercises, the stronger our brain becomes. So the more that children have practice in sorting information and applying patterns, the easier it becomes and the more efficient they can apply it to academics. So the easier it becomes, the more efficient they can be in school when they have to do those same processes. Okay, so now let's get back to the 5 senses and making meaning. So we sort all the time. We're always putting things in groups, just living our everyday lives. So one of the examples I use is laundry. When we fold laundry, we put different clothing items in stacks, even sometimes shirts, but it could be shirts for a child. It could be shirts for a loved one. It could be shirts for myself. So there's all different ways that we sort and we categorize things, even just day-to-day living in our home. Okay. Okay. And then let's do next. All right. So some other examples of sorting activities could be things that we do: cooking, putting up groceries, washing dishes. Okay. So with that, priming your thoughts, if you have the time or if you can, put in the comments section ways that we can sort activities in our everyday lives with our children. And then what we can do after those are typed in the comments, we can go at the end when we have questions, and we look at comments, those can be read. Okay, so now some things to think about when you're sorting with your child. You always want to talk to your child about what you're doing. And what you're doing when you do that is you're modeling. You're modeling for your child your thoughts and why you're sorting the way you are, because they can't read our minds, right? And sometimes we know things and it's easy for us to take it for granted. And we're expecting the child to think in a very similar way, but they don't. So what we're doing is we're actually modeling and actually say, what are you seeing? What are you touching? What are you feeling to why you're sorting it the way you are? Okay. Now in school, when we describe things, we call it attributes. Attributes are used in every subject. You have to notice, let's say if you're classifying a plant, you have to notice the different attributes, which is how you know how to label the plant, or you know how to make a diagram about the life cycle of a plant. So you have to look at attributes and you have to look at the details. Okay, a triangle. A triangle is a triangle because it has 3 angles and 3 sides, but you have to notice those attributes. Okay, so when you're sorting, talk to your child about what they're seeing, what they're feeling, what they're touching, and why they're sorting it the way they are. Okay, and then another thing you can do is you can have your child match items based on those attributes that are being described. Okay, and as they match the item, just like how you would say your thoughts and why you're doing something you're doing or sorting it the way you're sorting, ask them why and allow them to talk to you about what they're doing. Because another thing we have to do in school is we have to sort and categorize and apply patterns and rules, but we also have to be able to tell a teacher or somebody why we did what we did and be able to communicate about that knowledge. Okay, so another thing that we do is we also pattern. Patterns are attributes that occur in a certain way, and it occurs the same way over and over and over. And a lot of times what we do is we use patterns to make predictions and decisions. An example I give is the weather. As we start approaching October, even if it's still hot outside, I know, because usually year after year in October, it starts cooling off some or down. I will always go ahead and I pull out my fall clothes. But I know that I'm predicting because of the weather that I experience every year. So that's an example of applying a pattern. Okay, now patterning activities that you do at home, those can include Legos, those can include dolls, a home calendar, anything that you have in your home. And Legos, now usually when we do pattern, one of the things that we start with is color. So it's okay to pattern by color, but eventually I want you to push you into patterning other attributes because it's easy to get stuck on color. So for example, Legos. Can we make a pattern based off the little circles that we see in the Legos? Like, so for example, you might have a small piece that has 2 circles and a larger piece that has 6 circles, and then maybe make a pattern based off that, 2, 6, 2, 6, that kind of pattern. Or can you make what we call a growing pattern, where you might find a Lego piece that has 1 circle, another Lego piece that has 2 circles, a Lego piece that has 3 circles, a Lego piece that has 4 circles, because each of those are growing by 1. So those are examples of a way to make patterns. Okay, you can organize Legos by shape. You can put dolls in order from smallest to largest. You can notice how many days are on the calendar until a home event. You know, a family vacation, or visiting a loved one or a friend, football game, basketball game, I mean, you name it. And they can count the days until that event, or count how many weeks. Just there's all kinds of things that you can do. Okay, so same thing when predicting and patterning. Talk to your child about what you're doing, and then have your child say how they know what the next thing should be in that pattern. What are they seeing? What are they recognizing? Make sure though that you model it as well, so that they can learn from you and then they can imitate what you're doing. And then you want your child to be able to say the attributes that they used when it came to that pattern. Okay, and why. Okay, so these are some examples. The link below is younger, and I think this one it's older. And I think Christine, Dr. Drew, clicked on the link just to kind of show the parents, give people a feel for what it kind of looked like and what it was. So these are ways, that first link, where these were fun ways to teach kids about patterns, different ways. So just these are different, you know, things that you can make patterns with. Objects that could be, you can make patterns. And then different ways of practicing. Okay, so that's a pretty good resource. And then there's another link, I think it was primarily patterning through colors. So that was Jingle Bells, the larger bells, and this are no different colors of the bells. Yes, I think this one was mainly.
If you want me to scroll up or down, let me know.
Okay, nope, you're doing great. So yeah, so it was basically, and then they had the sensory bin, stickers. That's just another way. There you go. There we go. Okay.
Can you see my screen?
I can. Let's go on to the next. There we go. All right. So now I wanted to make a point to touch on some reading and math now that we kind of talked about those cognitive activities. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to read with your child as much as possible. And what we have found is it really does not matter if it's in English, because it's going back to using those cognitive skills and those cognitive strategies that we use in our everyday lives. The more fluent your child is in the language you speak at home, because remember, going back to use what you know to figure out what you don't know. So the more fluent a child is at home in their language, the more likely or the easier it's going to be for your child to pick up English. Okay, so do not worry about whether or not it's in English. The key is that you read as much as possible. The child is hearing words, hearing language, and applying those cognitive skills. Okay, when you read or ask questions, pause, see what your child says or points to or notices. And here's another thing. So this is about using those cognitive skills. It's okay if you can't finish the book. Okay, it's about hearing those words, seeing pictures, and interacting with you. Okay, that ties into using the 5 senses to make meaning. So do as much as you can, but if you can't finish the book, don't stress out, but don't give up either. Keep reading. Okay. Okay, and then in mathematics is understanding quantities and seeing the relationships among those quantities. Okay, it's related to how we organize the world around us. And so I tell people to be very careful about worksheets. Worksheets in and of themselves is not a bad thing, but mathematics is really applying concepts in real world situations. And sometimes we miss those real world applications if it's always worksheet based. Go ahead, let's go. So instead of just solely focusing on worksheets, think about the day-to-day activities that we use in our lives where we continuously, constantly apply math. So these are some examples. So we have like creating a budget, using coupons, following recipes, daily problem solving. So for example, I remember not that long ago, we had to make sure everybody had their school supplies going to school. And so we gathered, collected, counted, and compared it to the shopping list where we had to buy the school supplies. Every bit of that is math. Okay, saving coins. Coins are excellent when it comes to teaching place value and actually understanding the value of numbers.
I was just going to say, Vanessa, with my class, it came with the plastic coins, and I switched to real coins because I just figured it's better for them to learn the real thing, because it's sometimes kids with disabilities have trouble, making the connection between the plastic ones and
Right. Right. Like, why are you telling me this is a dime? This does not look like any dime I've seen at home. Those plastic dimes. I know what, yes. And they look at you like, you are lying to me. This is not a dime. You're absolutely right. So when you do math, have your child find numbers everywhere in your house and make those connections. Okay. So I'm going to show you an example on the next slide. It's a juice box packet. Okay. So we're going to look at that juice box packet. Okay. So you got a juice box packet. There are 8 juice boxes in this pattern, in this packet, but it's not just 8. You can find 4 plus 4. You can find 8 is the same as 8. You can count by 2s to get to 8 and realize it's 2, put with 2, put with 2, put with 2, and that makes a quantity of 8. You can also see that there's 2 groups of 4, or there's 4 groups of 2. And then you can also count by 1s and put all that together. And as you use juice boxes, you can make subtraction problems. You can have 8, you take 1, and you realize that there are 7. So there's all kinds of ways we can use math and apply math to our everyday experiences with our children. And here's some links. Now, these are predominantly worksheets because usually after I do some professional development, people usually ask, use the worksheets, use them, but it's really important to have those everyday activities. I say some of these reading worksheets are a little high. So you can find some of the worksheets by grade level. But if you end up starting at a lower grade level or using a lower grade level, or you end up reading the worksheet with your child, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's about using those cognitive skills. It will eventually come. So yes, and so those are different worksheets by grade, and it's got different topics. There you go. And so these are worksheets. Some of these worksheets on this site you have to pay for, but there's a lot that you do not have to pay for. And it's just got different categories that you can explore. So these are just some resources. You do not have to use them, but I know some people struggle with the, I really need a worksheet, or I really need something. But just know that you can use those cognitive skills whether you have a worksheet or not. So, see, and I think that there we go. So the post assessment, and I didn't know. I'm gonna let Doris. I'm gonna let you take over, Dr. Hill.
In the meanwhile, Dr. Hinton, I posted some of the questions that they were sent to me privately. I sent it to you, so you should be able to see them on your chat box.
Do you want me to read the questions and answer them?
Yes, please.
Okay, I can do that. Okay, so I see one parent says we try to keep toys sorted by groups. Absolutely. Yes. So I see another question. My child has an intellectual condition, and the teacher says he has the mind of a younger child, 4 years of age. Can he still learn? Absolutely. Absolutely. He may learn in different ways, but yes. There's a mom that says, I'm sorting types of toys, shoes of different uses. That's a really good idea. I see an example, sorting food like salty and sweet when you put stuff away in the pantry. That's an excellent idea. Sort by color and size. Fantastic. Okay, and then let me see. I'm seeing, okay, and okay, opinion about the child that only prefers to play with the iPad. Is that a good option? Or should I limit his access to it and make him play with real toys? It's always good to play with real toys. You can do activities of sorting and recognizing patterns through the iPad as well. The key I would say that you want is you want a balance. Because how we use information on the iPad is a little bit different than how we use information in real life. So
Dr.
for
Hinton,
example, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we seem to have a buzzing and it's making it unclear. I don't know if there's something that can be turned off or if it's on my end. I thought it might have been just on my end, but I've gotten some messages saying that it's not clear. So
So there's a buzzing sound.
when you talk,
Let's see.
you know, sometimes it could be
Is that-
something small,
Yes, is that better?
not much. Darren, are you still hearing the buzzing on Dr. Hinton's end? He said yes.
Okay, let me see. Let me see if I can go.
Because as I said, I don't think I'm buzzing. I think it's on your end. Okay, do you want to continue with some of the comments or reading, Maria, while we're waiting for Dr. Hinton?
Yes, so some of the comments are that we try to keep the toys sorted by groups. They also sort things by toys, shoes, and different uses, depending on the objects. That they are children that they like to order objects by color and size. And another parent shared that their child classifies, you know, the clothing and the toys. And that they sort Legos together, cars, helicopters, airplanes, and then big toys that don't fit into either the storage container nor the toy box.
Okay, I like the example they used of silverware. That's a good one too. I did, while we're waiting for Dr. Hinton, I put in the survey for the pre and post test back in the chat box. And then I added at the bottom, you'll see it says Survey Monkey. That survey is from the ACDD. And it's a federal survey and it has to do with consumer satisfaction. Were you satisfied with the presentation? Also, it is how they inform the federal government for getting renewed funding. So if you could please fill those out, it's very helpful because we'd like to be able to continue providing providing these presentations. Did you want to maybe some of the questions, and Maria, you and I could answer them a little bit while we wait for Dr. Hinton? Everybody's time
She
is
already answered one. Okay, she answered about the child that only wants to play with the iPad. Okay, so here's one. My child has very limited language. How do I make sure I am helping him enough? How long should I spend with him working on that?
If he has limited language, I know with when we talk about acquiring skills, and Dr. Hinton may address it a little bit differently, but when we talk about acquiring skills, our kids learn what's called receptive language much faster than they do expressive language. So while the individual or the child may not be able to tell you in complete sentences their wants and needs, if you say to them, go get the water, and they go get the water, then they have good receptive language skills, and you just need to keep talking to them and with them and working on vocabulary and following directions, and model some of the words and wait for them to, we call them a successive approximation. If they say something that is similar to what you're trying to say, you praise them or give them that cookie or whatever it is that you think that they're asking for, but they can't quite articulate an entire sentence. Does that help? But again, it's receptive language comes first and then expressive language. So the more you talk and read and attend, the more likely you're going to help build that vocabulary.
And I guess it's taking every single opportunity that as parents we have, right? Like when we have them in the car with us and, you know, start saying like, oh, look at the red car. This is the store, we're going to Walmart, you know, and then spell the letters, right? Like Walmart that's the W. Can you find the letter A? And so it's taking every opportunity to help them, you know, gain more language and just probably get them as involved as we can during our daily day. I have another question. Well, I think it's more of a comment. My son loves when I read in Spanish, and he makes funny, and I make funny sounds. He doesn't use words, but I can see he's happy because he laughs.
Absolutely.
And another, this is a question. In your opinion, should we give allowances, meaning money, for chores and let them spend it on whatever they want to? Do you want to address that, Dr. Hill?
Well, you could be working on counting skills that way. And if they're rewarded, if money is a motivator, it doesn't have to be a lot. I know when my kids were younger, if they earned some change or, you know, maybe $1 worth of change, sometimes we would stop at a garage sale and they could buy a lot for that $1. So it's a good way for them to, again, to practice money skills. And if they're very motivated by it, I mean, a lot of us, you know, we are very motivated by being compensated. So I don't know if that's the right answer, but it depends on what the motivation is. And pair it with praise or pair it with access to different things so that eventually the money doesn't matter. Was that clear enough, Maria?
Yes, yes. And I will say that based on my personal experience, you know, when we were working with our children, you know, we'll be like, okay, well, if they are trying to have a specific X amount of money, I will ask them, well, what you would like to buy, right? And sometimes they were just stickers. And so, but if I made an agreement that after they earn the money, they could spend it on whatever they want to, I never went back and said, no, you cannot spend it on that, you know, because then I will end up with a meltdown. So I don't see any other questions or comments. Dr. Hill, I don't think that the links for the ACDD, I don't see them on the chat box.
Oh, well, wait a minute. I put them. Oh, I sent it to Maria Baker instead of to.
Okay.
Hold on. All right, let me leave it to me.
Okay.
So
a good question is, what is a good way to introduce multiplication for a third grader? I will say that something that worked for us, it was with music. You know, you could find now, you know, on YouTube, you know, there are the timetables in music and in videos. So that's something that was helpful later. And it's going to depend on the student, because some students are more visual, but others are more like kinesthetic. So I remember that we used to sing and dance, and then later on I will support it with a visual so that it will help.
Okay, that should be in there now, Maria. Sorry about that. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. And I know with math, the more concrete you can, and Vanessa, Dr. Hinton does a lot of work with CRA math, which is concrete, representational, and then abstract. The first thing you do it is with those Legos, counting the Legos, or 2 times 2, you have 2 Legos and 2 Legos, and then 4 Legos on the other side, and you go 2 times 2 equals, and you're making it very concrete. And then you can actually, when you start using representational, might be if you have a piece of paper with circles on it and you count the circles and you do, like she showed in the slide with the juice boxes, if you actually physically did each one of those problems, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 8, or 2 times 4 equals 8. If you actually use those concrete items and then start working on writing it, but maybe do it with circles alongside the problem so they can actually see the representation of the juice boxes. And then I want to make sure I'm not talking too fast for the interpreters. I forgot about that. And then you go to abstract, where all you need is the numbers. So I would say with multiplication, very similar, if you can do that, that would be helpful. Do we have any other questions, Maria, that you can see?
No, I don't see any other.
Okay, it's Dr. Hinton said, I don't think I can get my microphone to work now. So I think we're pretty much at the end of our presentation, and the one we are going to have one in October. We don't have the dates yet, but we plan to have it and with an organization from Birmingham, if they have the time and opportunity to come talk to us. We'll have the Friday night presentation, and then we'll have the Tuesday presentation. We just don't have the dates yet, so more to follow. Again, please fill out those surveys before you hop off. They're very helpful to us, especially since we're trying to get better. So if we know what you learned based on your knowledge when you started, and we see that, wow, maybe we need to present that one again, or a different version of it, because more people need more information in that area. Then also, again, that federal survey is to help us continue funding. I wanted to say thank you to our interpreters, Darren Reed and Maria Baker. And thank you to Dr. Hinton. I could see, I think she was in a school is where she was presenting from. Because it looked like so anyway, there may have been some issues with the audio at the school. So thank you so much for being here today. I am gonna